And please forgive me if I'm looking on another screen, it's because I have two monitors, so sometimes I have to read off of that. So while I'm getting started, please see in the chat from Rob the form to sign in. Make sure you get signed in because we will need quorum for this meeting, any voting to happen in this meeting. To seek the floor for any reason, please raise your hand using the reactions in the bottom or top of your Zoom, depending on how you have it situated. I will call on people in the order that they appear. And then once you've spoken, please remember to lower your hand so that I don't call on you twice. If you're calling in, you can press *9 to raise your hand as well. If I need to take a quick poll of the membership, you may also choose a yes or no reaction. That is also in your your participants panel in the Zoom. There's going to be times where we're going to disable the meeting chat, but you're still going to be able to message the host. So please feel free to do that if you're experiencing any difficulties. And we are live streaming on Facebook as well. So I will jump in. Sophia, do you mind switching over to the meeting norms slide? Thank you. Okay. So just to make sure that we're all on the same page, these are our meeting norms that we have set. Please treat each other with dignity and respect. If you don't know something, ask. I would like to think that we're all very welcoming here and we all are on the same team, so we want to support each other in that. Make sure to pay attention and be aware of when you can step up and also to step back. And please remember, everyone here is a volunteer and we all share responsibility for staying on time. Next, please, Sophia. Okay, so we are following Robert's Rules of Order. They are set up parliamentary procedures that we use to run the meetings. If you'd like to contribute, but you don't quite know where to start, a good place to start is raising your hand and we can help you from there. Most of the motions are pretty simple. They will start with I move, we approve, amend, postpone, and so we'll go from there when those come up. And you have a right to participate as a full member in our meetings. If you need us to slow down and explain what's going on, please raise your hand and ask, and we're happy to do so. And if you are so good at Robert's Rules of Order, make sure to use those powers for good and consider the impact when making a complicated motion. And I'll just throw a shout out because this is my first meeting that I'm leading, so we will navigate that should it come up, but please move forward with grace if you can. All right, next slide, please. All right, and then I would like to take a moment for our land acknowledgement. So although we are all joining virtually tonight, we'd like to start this meeting acknowledging that we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. And if you'd like to learn more about whose land you occupy and have occupied, you can use this link native-land.ca to learn more. And I also would like to take a moment to say that we do pay real rent to the Duwamish people. And so that is an important thing that we do as part of our organization. All right, and with that, Sophia, would you mind showing the agenda? Thank you. Okay. Wonderful. So first, I would like to have approval of our agenda. Is there a motion? Jacob, I see your hand.
That's me making a motion.
Perfect. Great. Is there a second? Justin, I see a second. Wonderful. Okay, and then I would also entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the June meeting. I see a hand from Justin. Perfect. Anyone would second that? Vivian, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Sorry to interrupt really quick, Emily. I think we would have to vote on the on approving the agenda first, and then we would have to vote on approving the minutes from June 2023.
Okay, okay. I see this now. Thank you.
Yes, and I think we have to just double check that we are at quorum.
Which I don't
Rob,
believe
could
that we
you?
are, because I believe that quorum is 25.
So one more person, if they could sign in.
Rob, I see your hand up.
Madam Chair, I believe that Linda Clifton is with her spouse, John Coelho.
Correct, and I signed both of us in.
Wonderful.
I had to provide an extra voting code for John, so I'm aware of this. And It looks
Okay.
like he's flashing in and out next to Linda.
Okay, Rob, will you confirm when we have 25 people signed in?
Yes, will do.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll also repost the sign-in link for folks in case anyone needs that.
Thank you so much. Linda and John, I see you. Thanks. Thank you for that. I see 24 participants on the call plus John, so that should be 25, but I just want to make sure that we get everyone signed in. And thank you all for your patience as we verify.
If we do not have quorum officially right now, I think we could still go through the meeting and double back. Oh, and I think Amy just signed in also, so I think we do have 25.
Okay. I just want to make sure that all 25 have entered their codes.
Madam Chair, we have a few people who have entered invalid voting codes. That's probably because we issue new voting codes every meeting.
Okay. All right. I think for the sake of time, we will wait to approve the agenda and the minutes until we can make sure that we have quorum. All right. I think that we can start discussing things though. Okay. So, I will take on the chair's report. This is coming from our chair, Paul. Is that the primary is happening right now. So ballots were mailed. I personally got mine today. And drop boxes are open. So please make sure to vote by August 1st. And I would like to turn it over to Jacob to talk about the get out the vote for our endorsements.
Yeah, I just have a quick thing. We're mainly going to be just forwarding events that the candidates are organizing themselves because those, I think, have the most infrastructure behind them right now. And we could always use more money. And so instead we're gonna save our budget for things like mailers for the general when we expect some pretty competitive races. So we'll be forwarding information for I guess, for canvases, meet and greets, things like that from the campaigns as we get them. And I'd really like to highlight that you can also sign up for notices from all the candidates in the agenda. And I'd also especially like to highlight the really competitive races like Seattle City Council D4, King County Council D8. They're like very few are not that competitive, but especially we really want to make sure Ron Davis in Seattle City Council D4 has a very good showing during the primary. So I'd highly recommend signing up. And also he's a fun guy to hang out with if you haven't met him before. And as I get more details on events, you'll be hearing from me soon.
Thank you, Jacob. Really appreciate that. And on the agenda, you can check out all of our endorsements in case you had any questions about that. Also, part of the Pride Brunch, or part of the chair's report, is recapping our Pride Brunch. So during Pride weekend, we had a Pride Brunch and it was very successful. We had a good showing of people. And so if you made it, thank you so much for being there. It really meant a lot to us. And if you couldn't be there, please keep it on your calendars for next year because we would love to see all of your faces. And I want to give a big shout out to Nosheen and to Dawn for doing so much for getting all the resources possible to make that happen, and also to James for letting us host at his building. It was a great venue. You could see the Space Needle right there. All right. And then I also want to put it on everyone's radar that our summer barbecue is coming up. We are still looking at the dates to see what date is the best, but just stay tuned to your email and to our social media for that ahead, because it should be fun to get everyone together. And we are always looking for volunteers. And so if you have the want and desire to volunteer with us, I'm going to post a link in the chat. We would love to have you volunteering in multiple capacities with us. So please check out that link whenever you can. Okay, Rob, how are we doing on quorum?
Madam Chair, we are progressing, but we still have, we're still about 5 sign-ins short.
Okay. If you will, please keep me up to date. And
Sure.
then once we do have it, then we will.
And if you don't have a sign-in code, please email tally@43rddemocrats.org or feel free to DM me directly, and I or a member of the Tally committee can help make sure that you get a voting code so you can get signed in.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob.
And I just want to verbalize something that was covered in the chat. This is for all paid members, not necessarily just PCOs. So you don't have to be a PCO to vote in on the items in this meeting.
Thank you. That's great clarification. If you haven't gotten signed in, please do so. We do have several things to vote on this evening. And so I just want to make sure that that we have quorum and also that your voice is represented. Okay. The next thing on the agenda is talking about our open board positions. So we have several as a part of the 43rd District Democrats Board. We have several open positions. We have King County alternate. We have membership and then policy and advocacy. So if any of these positions interest you, we would love to chat with you about that. You can email chair@43rd District Democrats and also vice chair. And we would love to explain to you kind of what these positions entail and also the process moving forward. And we would love to have you join our board if you would like. So please reach out to us and we're happy to kind of explain the positions further. So we have 3 PCO appointments. We do need quorum to vote on the appointments. But I think that we can give 2 minutes to each person just to introduce themselves. So let's do that. Julia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I don't
Perfect.
need,
Oh,
yeah. Can you hear
okay.
me?
Yes, and Sophia has the timer. And so you will have 2 minutes and we're just going to use the timer just to keep track of that. Can you see Sophia's screen, the 43rd District Dem screen?
I can't at the moment, but I can keep it under 2 minutes. So, oh, there it is. Okay, great.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I'm Julia Turlenchamp. I live in First Hill. I've been here since 2018. I first came as a renter back to Seattle, and now I'm an owner, first-time owner in this neighborhood. I grew up around here, but left for quite a long time, and then I'm a boomerang, so came back home. I work for the State Department of Agriculture, but most of my career, I've actually worked on the official side for elected officials, both in Congress and the governor's office. And now I work in food security. So if you're ever curious about how the political world works, once elected officials are elected and are passing policy, I'm the kind of person who actually works on that policy and makes sure that it's implementable. My specialty is fixing problematic legislation that's already been passed, because believe it or not, that happens a lot. And so that is something I've specialized in, particularly during COVID. I was activated to the military base for almost a year, working out of Camp Murray. And so I have a background in economic development as well. Anyways, I'm excited to be more engaged in this community. I've been a more passive participant on the what we call the unofficial side. So just excited to learn a little bit more about this community and to be more present with my neighbors and helping move forward and make this a better place to live.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate telling us about yourself and for being here this evening. Thank you. And next we have Colin. Colin, would you like to share and introduce yourself?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Wonderful.
Hello, I am Colin. I live in Fremont. I grew up in Woodinville, but then
Sorry. One second, please. I'm trying to add you to the screen.
Okay, cool. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay, you should be good now.
Cool. I'm Colin. I grew up in Woodinville, moved away for a few years, went to college in California, and then lived in New York for a while, and then recently moved back with my wife during COVID. And so we've been in Fremont for about 3 years now. And I'm just I'm excited to get a little more engaged with our local party here. For work, I work for Recidiviz, which is a tech nonprofit that works with state government's Department of Corrections on criminal justice reform and how to safely shrink the criminal justice system using data. And I'm also a foster parent here in Seattle, and I've been licensed for over a year now, which has been great and a good way to become a part of the community more, and move our community forward. But yeah, just excited to get more involved.
Thanks so much, Colin. Really appreciate the time you spoke with us about yourself. And our third is Shelby. Shelby, are you here? I'm not seeing Shelby on the participant list, but I just want to make sure. Okay. I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand or anything like that. So once we have quorum, we'll be able to vote. But in the meantime, it was really great hearing both Julia and Colin's intros. Okay. Next on the agenda, we are flying through this meeting, which is great. Very time efficient tonight. Next on the agenda, there we have 2 resolutions. And again, we're not going to be able to vote on the resolutions until we get 25 people signed in. But I believe, and Rob, maybe you could tell me if this is wrong, but I believe that we can still have discussion around the resolutions in the meantime.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, we will do that. So this is, that is our second resolution. The other one on Ukraine is the first one. And this is brought to us by John. And so, John, would you like 5 minutes to speak to what this resolution says, and kind of the content and behind it? And this is supposed to be 5 minutes of factual just explanation.
Yes, and I would like to cede some time to some Ukrainian comrades that are on the list that are visible on the screen here. This is a genocidal war. It's unprovoked. It's gratuitous, and if Ukraine loses this war, it's a loss for the entire planet. It's a breakdown of the peaceful coexistence between nations that has existed since the Second World War in Europe. It will be cause great encouragement to any psychopathic dictator that wants to invade another country. And a good example is China, and who is sharpening its knives for Taiwan. Now I give the rest of my time to Ukrainians that are have attended this meeting. One of them is Boris Lebdev. I just saw he can possibly recount some experiences of friends and relatives.
Thanks, John. Boris, would you like to speak?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it's one of my arguments actually. So the security of individual country might impact security of other countries. So when Ukraine was attacked, so it's immediately questioned whether it's protectable, because despite all international recognition and agreements and pacts, our country is vulnerable to attacks from Russia, because immediately after that there was spread of lies in public media inspired by Russians or funded by them. This experience means that it can be also used against other countries, especially against Taiwan, because formally it's not a country. So it's not recognized as a country by many countries, including Ukraine, for our shame. So that's why I think speaking up about this topic is extremely important. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Boris. Really appreciate that. John, was there another person that you also wanted to yield time to?
You know, I expected to have a number of Ukrainians in the meeting, but Anna, there's Anna. She would like to speak.
Anna, you are recognized.
Hi, can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Ukrainian and I also have Polish heritage. I was born in Ukraine and raised in a very multicultural family. And this war happened like very suddenly. All of a sudden, my world crashed. All my friends are in imminent danger. My family is in danger. My dad refuses to go overseas and seek shelter somewhere else. He wants to be on his land, in his house. So I'm worried all the time about my friends and family there. With the recent attack on Lviv, that's the city where I spent most of my time growing up and went to college. It was so heartbreaking that like right now I'm shaking recalling through it. I got a text message from my friends and they were in great scare and asked me just to be with them, texting each other messages, because hearing those explosions around the city was more than I can handle. And after alarm was out, we just started texting each other if everybody's okay. And we were like, yeah, everybody's okay. And then an hour later, I got a text that my dear friend died. She was a brilliant young girl. I knew her as a child. We went to the same church. She was a volunteer journalist, helping people, being very active. And like we lost her and her mom. And this attack happened on civilians. And there are thousands of civilians that died. We don't have the exact number. I honestly think it's more than 8,000. And my husband's parents, they live in the area where all this happened. So they're so shaken that they can't even take their usual routes to work, because they just like cannot go through the trauma. So I really beg you to pay attention to what's happening in Ukraine and help save my country.
Thank you, Anna. Thanks for speaking to your experience. The 5 minutes is up for the explanation of the resolution. So now we'll go into 5 minutes of Q&A. Is there any Q&A? Please raise your hand. Boris, I see your hand first. Go ahead.
I think Will was first, but if you're okay with that, I can start.
Okay, we'll go to Will first then. Will, go ahead.
Yeah, well, my basic question is, do you think it would help a lot if we sent you all the F-16s and main battle tanks that we have sitting in the desert in the United States? Or should we just wait until everything is blown up?
What do you mean by that? Gonna,
I mean, do you think we should send the aid now, or should we wait longer as we keep doing?
I don't think that is a valid question on this particular resolution. I think it is I think that is a bit more separate, but this resolution is specifically asking for Senators Murray and Cantwell and Representative Jayapal to support Ukraine specifically, not necessarily about weapons or anything. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question?
I'm sorry, I was just on mute. I'm so sorry. I was going to ask if John wanted to respond to what Sophia said before we move on to our next question. And you are on mute.
There you go.
okay, you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'd just like to say that it should not be a slow giving these people these weapons. It should be fast. Right now, they have a very difficult situation where they have a lot of mined land and they can't get through. One way to do that is to go over the mines and bomb. And there are also these mine removers that we could give them. And I think it's sooner is better than later, and that's always been the case.
Thank you. I do want to make sure that we are talking about the content of the resolution as we move forward with our questions, respectfully. Boris, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure that my question is exactly about the resolution, but I would like to know if in American politics there is already bipartisan or at least democratic vision. What should be the final point? So what will be the win for the West, for United States, and for Ukraine? Thank you.
Would you like to respond to that, John?
Say that Ukraine itself should define what a victory consists of. I mean, they're doing the dying. Let them define what it is. If they want to give up some territory, that's for them to decide. But we should go all the way with them. If they want to take it all back, we should have our unreserved support for them as far as they want to go.
May I add something? But-
Linda, I'm gonna pause and call on our next question if that's
Sure.
okay with you, but I will come back to you, I promise. We have 50 seconds. Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question concerning the language that calls for the transfer of lethal weapons, which is definitely an escalation. Being that there's been talk in the media recently of sending cluster munitions over, which are very well known for killing innocent people because they're so sporadic. Is it possible to include language in this resolution to not support the use of cluster munitions?
John, go ahead.
Say that we should leave it up to people who have studied this matter more. Now, if cluster ammunition falls on a fort full of soldiers, it's not going to kill any civilians of any significance. You know, so that's an extremely important thing to consider. As it stands, I think we're going to have to realize that the strategic bombing of Germany, which is directly aimed at civilians, the far bombing of Tokyo ended the war. Somebody might be able to say that was terrorism because it targeted civilians. But at some point, you're going to have to think what the greater good is. That's all I can say about it.
Okay. So we have run out of time for Q&A. But I did say that I would turn it over to Linda for a final question. So I would be interested to do that.
So thank you. My only comment is that the language in the resolution simply says increased support, increased assistance, does not call for any specific weapons, but that needs to be determined because of what is needed. And I think that flexibility is important in helping win this war.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, now that we have gone through our 5 minutes of factual presentation on the resolution and the Q&A, we will move into speakers for and against the resolution. Is there anyone who would like to speak against the resolution? I just want to make sure we have speakers on either side before we move forward. Please raise your hand. Okay, I'm gonna wait one more moment. If we have no speakers against, then we will skip the for and against. Okay, Elaine, I see your hand up. Okay, so we are going to start with a 2-minute for speech, and then Elaine will get to you after that. So please raise your hand for 2 minutes to be recognized to speak in favor of this resolution. Okay, I'm not sure if it's Linda or John, but I will recognize whoever of the two of you have your hand up for 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. I raised my hand.
All right, go ahead.
I think it's really clear that the United States cannot sit by and watch a major power destroy a country that has become a democracy and is free and was free until they were invaded. I think we heard eloquently from Anna and Boris why it matters. And I think we have 2 senators who support this effort to make sure that Russia does not simply trample this democracy in the middle of Europe. Right now, Russia is willing to starve the rest of the world by stopping the grain shipments. They will stop at nothing. And they will cause pain not just to the Ukrainians, but to much of the rest of the world. I think this resolution is the least we can do. And I yield my time to Anna or Boris if they want to say something.
Thank you.
All right, Boris, you have 40 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your support. I actually escaped Ukraine just in the first day of invasion to Romania, where I had business. So, and then I moved to United States. And I understand that I'm a person who have relative luck to avoid the atrocities among relatives. But I know many people who suffer, who got killed. I know that there are Americans who know their relatives or friends being killed in Ukraine. So for me, it's important to not just ask for help, but also to provide help. Immediately from second day, I started volunteering to support our people in Romania. Thank you.
Thank you, Boris. All right, and now we have Elaine. You are recognized. And I just want to, before you start, I just want to make sure our timer is going. Right now it's stuck for me on 40 seconds. Sophia, do you want to reset that if it's not frozen? Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Elaine, go ahead.
Apologies for that. Thank
No
you.
worries, no worries at all. I appreciate you having it ready. Elaine, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I want to honor, the intention behind this and the sense of need behind this. The only thing is I don't see how it changes, in what way it changes the situation now. The US has just crossed a red line and allowed the use of allowed supply of cluster munitions to Ukraine, which we know from war legacies long ago that continue to hurt, kill, and maim people, civilian people, even if in the time of war they were intended or for the most part affected people in combat. I think the U.S. has pushed as far as it can and continues to, and there's no lack of commitment. So I don't know what this would change, other than asking the U.S. to consider even a nuclear option. We're already on a slippery slope, and our intention is to not be engaged in a direct conflict with the Soviet Union, with Russia, and I feel we need to maintain the limits we've established. And even then, there are many among us who wish to see the U.S. acknowledge its role in provocation of this war and to take a stand in terms of a ceasefire.
Thank you, Elaine. With that, the 2 minutes is up, but I really appreciate both our for and against. We can have another round of for and against if we have another person to speak against and another for. So please raise your hand if you would like to speak. I see Anna, my apologies. Anna, are you speaking for or against? You're on mute. I can't hear you.
I'm speaking for.
Okay, one moment. I just want to see if we have anyone else who would like to speak against. Ellen, I see your hand up. What is your intention, or how do you intend to speak?
I'd like to speak against.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so we'll start with Anna and then we'll go to Ellen. So Anna, you are recognized for 2 minutes and you may start when you're ready.
So my asking against is on a very personal level. Because all the politics that happens,
Anna, I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure our timer is going while you were speaking. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sophia, are we ready? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so my talking and asking to vote for this resolution is on a very personal level. Because when I was watching news and seeing wars happening in other countries, and I didn't know anybody. It seems very political. It seems like what we can do there, like it's just politics. It doesn't touch real people. But it changes instantaneously when it's your family and your country. And it is like that because you know how it works. You know people that go to the front line. You know people who are conscious about fighting for their country. You know young historians, you know young doctors, young entrepreneurs who were building their country. And now all of this is crashing, and they are putting their life and their love for their country and sacrificing their life. So this is very humane ask. Like, please do not forget Ukraine. I would love to take you there. I would love to show you my country. Please do not put halt-carded arguments against it, because what is happening there is horrible. And we as a human beings here, as a person here in the United States, we can help with it. And the more government hears that us people are in support of helping Ukraine, the more good can come out of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. And now we'll go to Ellen. One moment, Ellen, while we reset the timer. All right, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Emily. I would like to say that I support the Ukrainians in their struggle against the invaders of the Russian forces 100%. I actually have been personally donating to a couple of folks for armor and other products that are needed in their struggle. That being said, however, I cannot support this particular resolution. I have two concerns. One is the word lethal in point number 1, lethal aid. I feel like that is both overly specific and an escalation in the United States policy, and I would really like to not tie the hands of our representatives by specifying that aid must be lethal when there are many other ways that we can aid Ukraine in its struggle. I'm also very concerned about point number 3, which calls on allies and partners in Europe to increase national defense spending. I don't believe that we have any business telling other countries how much or where to spend their defense funds. I think this is a big overstep on the part of the United States, which is already known for plenty of overstepping in the past. I think there are many other conflicts in the world which, if we provide this support to Ukraine, immediately people will begin to say, well, what about this other conflict? What about this other conflict? What about the Palestinians?
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
I apologize, your time, the 2 minutes had run out. All right. We can have another round of speakers if we have 2 more speakers, 1 for and 1 against. I'm not seeing any new hands. Anna, I do see your hand up. Are you intending to speak for?
I'm sorry, I think I forgot to raise it down.
No problem at all. No problem.
Unless there is somebody who willing to speak more, then I'll join.
For sure. Okay, no worries. Okay, Boris, I see your hand up as well. Are you looking to speak for?
Yes.
Okay. in order to have another speaker for, we would also need to have another speaker against. Is anyone hoping to have the floor? I just want to make sure anyone is recognized who would like to be recognized. Rob, I see your hand up. How do you intend to speak?
I intend to remember how to use the mute button.
Fair enough.
Then I actually wanted to move that we extend debate to allow Boris to speak for 2 minutes on the motion.
What is the motion that you are referring to?
We're taking speakers for and against on the resolution.
Oh, yeah.
Since we're taking speakers for and against, as I believe Boris is here specifically to speak for the resolution or about the resolution, I move that we extend our debate for him to speak for 2 minutes.
Okay, I believe that is fair. I don't believe that we need to vote on that. Is that correct, Rob?
If there's no objection, we could do it. If there is an objection, I believe it would potentially require a 2/3 vote.
Okay, wonderful. Is there any objection to having Boris speak without there being another con speaker? Any objection? Okay, wonderful. Boris, why don't you go ahead? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So my argument will be less emotional. It's just about the world security. Resources that we spent in protecting Ukraine and recovering national sovereignty is actually not the costs or political overdraft that you are trying to avoid. It's just something that you borrow from the future. So if we as a civilization cannot prove that invading other countries is really red line that no one should trespass, we will be hardly explaining this to China, to Iran, to other hostile countries, which are currently, unfortunately, in abundance of the world. So the Taiwan example is something that's really, really close to American people. Yes, Ukraine might be exporter of grains and iron, but Taiwan exports chips. So, and it means that Chinese invasion to Taiwan immediately will trigger skyrocketing prices for everything that American people use. So I would like also to unite worlds into protecting nations like Ukraine, which are victims of the hostile imperialistic politics of the neighbors. So that's my main point. So securing Ukraine actually secures the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Boris. All right. So it is my understanding that we do not have quorum today of people who have signed in. So let me repost the link to sign in. Or may I have, here, I have it.
Emily, while you're doing that, I want to verbalize that we had 5 invalid sign-in attempts. So if you check the chat, you'll see there were 3 voting codes. One started with RCVE, one started with V4VQ, one started with 9AEA, and then there were also two definitely invalid voting codes starting with QCY6 and 9FD6. If any of those is your voting code, please send me a Zoom message or send a note to Tally so that we can get you a valid voting code, get you signed in, and get quorum so we can take action on our business tonight.
Thank you for that reminder, Rob. Boris, I see your hand. You're recognized.
Yeah, I'm trying to apply the voting code. Unfortunately, it requires 4 letters, digits, alphanumerics, then hyphen, then again hyphen. So I cannot apply any of those.
Okay, Rob, would you please help Boris?
Yep, Boris, if you can send me a DM. Boris, I can't find your membership record. Did you join recently?
So
repeat, please.
Just I have randomly used it, and it says your ballot has been cast.
Oh, yeah, it will log a ballot, but you need to be a paid member to get a valid voting code. There's code for the nerds out there. There's a code on the back end that checks the voting code that you submitted against our list of our 152 members' known valid voting codes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So it will accept your submission, but you need to be a paid member with a valid voting code to vote. And if you are, I see we just had 2 sign-ins. We just had 3 sign-ins. Awesome. 2 of which are valid, which brings us to, one moment, and 1 of which is invalid, which brings us up to 19. So we're getting really close. If you're someone who's been using a voting code that starts with V4VQ, if you would send me a DM, I can get you your latest voting code. Or if Boris, if that was your test, it came through, but it doesn't match a valid voting code.
Okay, thank you.
No, it's a whole trying to make this all work for everyone to be able to vote from home or wherever Justin, wherever Liam is right now, or wherever folks are.
Liam is next to me right now.
Welcome back, Liam.
And just a reminder to everyone on the call, our quorum is 25. So without that quorum, we can't take official votes. But if you have not signed in, please message Rob or email Tally at 43rddemocrats.org. And we'll revisit our quorum after our next resolution. So with that, we will go on to discuss the next resolution on our agenda. Sophia, will you please pull that up? Whenever you have time. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so this resolution was brought to us by Rye. So Rye, would you like 5 minutes to speak to the contents of the resolution and kind of present the facts laid out in here?
Sure. Thank you, Vice
Wonderful.
Chair. You're doing
Okay.
great tonight.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. And I just want to make sure that we have the timer set to 5 minutes just so that you can keep track of where we're at. Sophia, whenever you get a second, if you could change that to 5. All right, Ryan, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Thanks. I don't see the timer, but you just let me know if I'm over. I don't plan to take up the whole time though.
Okay, fair enough.
Thanks. So Council Bill 120606 is going to committee on Friday, the Renters' Rights and Sustainability Committee. And Shama Sawant's office has brought forth a rent control proposition, and I thought we should have a debate on it and talk about it here in the 43rd to see what people feel about it. I myself am for the resolution, which is why I'm bringing it forward. Many of you know me as a candidate for Seattle City Council here in District 3. I would say the number one thing that I've gotten from people, young people specifically, in one of the most dense districts of Seattle, is why is my rent so high? Can you do something about housing? Can you do something about the houseless? These are all the kind of, I'd say 70 to 75% of the things people bring up to me as issues are all based around housing and renting. So rents have gone up 19% year over year for the past decade in Seattle. And specifically, this rent control bill will really establish rent control against the larger corporate landlords such as Avalon Bay and Greystar, amongst many others. Personally, when I lived in New York City for 4 years, I lived in a rent stabilized apartment and I paid $875 a month to live in Midtown Manhattan. And there was no way I was going to be able to live in New York if it wasn't for rent stabilization. So this resolution is to support the legislation, the ordinance that is being proposed by Shama Sawant's office. I think as the 43rd, we could really start making a movement here and start a conversation. Obviously, negotiations can change. I don't know if, Councilmember Sawant, you are here. Yes, I'll give the rest of my time to Councilmember Shama Sawant. Sorry, I didn't see you in the room earlier. Is that okay, Emily? Can I give the rest of my time? Perfect.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rye.
Over to you.
Yes, you are recognized, council member.
Thank you so much. Great to be here again with all of you. Thank you for your support for over the years for the various progressive policies, and thank you, Rye, for bringing this forward and for what you just said. Seattle rents almost doubled between 2010 and 2020. This is absolutely astounding, and dramatically increasing rent is the single most important reason for why working people, low-income families, and the poor are increasingly being pushed out of the city and even out of the Seattle region, and are facing impossibly long commutes, and housing instability is adversely affecting school children. The out of control rent increases are not magic or a law of supply and demand. The simple truth is that corporate landlords relentlessly exploit the renters because they can. It has everything to do with their greed and not with their needs. Just to illustrate, a report by Accountable.us found that the 6 largest property management companies in the US made $4.3 billion in profits in 2022, which is over $1.3 billion more than the previous year. And at least 3 of the 6 Invitation Homes, Avalon Bay and AMH, own multiple properties in Seattle. The rent control legislation we brought forward will cover every rental home in our city and will limit annual rent increases to the rate of inflation. Any small landlords who don't gouge their tenants will not be affected by this legislation. And the legislation leaves out all of the corporate loopholes that the real estate lobby has pushed and that have undermined rent control in other cities. And yes, there is a statewide ban, which is deeply unjust. It has existed for 42 years. This is a trigger law. It will essentially become effective the moment the state law banning rent control is overturned. But it's also meant to generate the momentum that we need in order to force that ban to be ended. And I just wanted to also share that this legislation has been endorsed by the 32nd Legislative District Democratic Party, AFGE 3197, federal government employees, UAW 4121 at the UW, WOC 1495 also at the UW, Nicholsville, Real Change, Tenants Union, B Seattle, Workers Strike Back, and Socialist Alternative. And I just wanted to share, all renters and working people will see their living standards improve with a strong rent control policy such as what we're proposing, but it's especially going to be seen in the living standards of people of color and low-income communities of color. I'll just state a nationwide study that was done in 2017, which showed that if we had a policy like rent control in place, which would allow Black and other families of color to not have to spend unaffordable levels of income on rent, then Black households would experience a 13% gain in annual disposable income, and Indigenous households would experience 8% gain. So this is a huge, it will create a big change in people's lives, but we need to fight to win this. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Rye, for bringing the resolution. And we will go into Q&A. So we have 5 minutes for Q&A. So anyone with a question, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. Rob, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us, Councilmember Sawant. And thank you for bringing the resolution, Rai. I understand that this is tied to inflation. Can you talk a little bit about which inflation index this is tied to?
Yes, it is tied to inflation. It is just tied to the consumer price index for urban goods and services, and that is the most standard measure that has been used. And we feel that it is a straightforward way to do this, and also that it is actually a fair mechanism. So in other words, it won't prevent landlords from gaining profits. What it is intended to do is to stop the kind of runaway profit making that corporate landlords are guilty of. And I'll just share in this context, a very important nationwide study showed that it's really the big landlords, and especially landlords that own 100 or more rental homes. They are the ones who are likely to gouge their tenants with sky high rents and also sky high rent increases. And that more small and more modest income landlords, who own much fewer number of units, don't actually do that. So in that sense, we feel like this is a very common sense and a very fair way to do this.
Thank you. Linda or John, you are recognized.
Thank you, Councilmember Sawant, for being here and for what you just said about the difference between the large corporate landlords and the small landlords. And I'm wondering what safeguards you have built into this legislation for people who are renting out perhaps a small ADU or DADU on their own property, or who have just one rental unit that they're renting.
So to be quite honest with you, I have not met a single small landlord of the kind you're talking about. There are lots of corporate landlords who like to masquerade as small landlords, but the kind of landlords that you described, who I would consider actually small landlords, to be honest with you, I have not met a single small landlord of that size ever gouging their tenants. We may agree or disagree on other policies, but I've not seen that. And granted, that's anecdotal evidence. But as I just stated, this nationwide statistical survey does show that the real problem is the corporate landlords. So just as a starting point, if you are a small landlord and you're not gouging your tenants, and as I said, I'm not really seeing that happen, then you will not be affected by this policy at all, because this policy is meant to curtail the kind of insane rent increases that a lot of our renters, which is the majority of the city, have seen. Furthermore, the legislation will also establish for every city council district a rent control board, as we're calling it, which will be majority renters, but it also have a landlord representative. And the board will be tasked. It will be a city council appointed board. Obviously, I agree that it would be better if we elected it, but at this moment, it seems too complex. So, but the rent control board would be charged with addressing any kind of exceptions that come in, which means that if there is a small landlord who is not gouging their tenants, but needs special permission where they are facing just an unexpected financial burden, like if there was some sort of, if a giant tree fell on the rental home and it really posed an unexpected financial difficulty and real calamity to the landlord, then that is the kind of case where the rent control board would deal with it. But I should say, of course, bottom line, no landlord gets to exploit renters. In my view, no tenants of any landlord should be exploited. But as I also said before, in reality, these cases don't arise from the really small landlords, they arise from corporate landlords.
Thank you so much. And Rai, I saw that you had gone off mute and now your hand is up, so I want to recognize you.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Sawant, one of the concerns that a lot of renters have is a need for Office of Renters' Rights, and that this resolution may be watered down by other, more moderate council members currently on the council at the committee hearing. How can we all show up for you as best we can on Friday and prevent any corporate loopholes from making their way into the legislation?
Thank you so much for asking that question, Rai, because that is, obviously, first of all, we need pressure from renters and all our community members, regardless of whether you're small landlords or homeowners. Like at our public hearing on Wednesday, which I hosted as the committee chair of the Renters' Rights Committee, many small landlords and homeowners spoke in strong favor of this bill because they want to live in a city where everybody is able to live, afford to live regardless of income. And
Councilmember Sawant, I just want to pause just for a second. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Our time ran out for questions, but we have a motion in the chat to extend. And so I just wanted to recognize that motion really quickly. So there's a motion to extend a Q&A for 5 minutes. Is there a second? I see a second. Okay, Rob, can you tell me, do we need to vote on this?
If there's no objection, it could be extended, but I was actually going to object to extending Q&A and suggest that we move into pro and con.
All right. My bad for misunderstanding the motion.
No, you can, but Ryan's motion is, I'm sorry, Rye's motion is valid. And if 2/3 of the body wants to extend the Q&A, they can extend the Q&A.
I can make a friendly amendment. I just wanted to let the council member finish her thoughts on that question that I had raised. If there's no objection to that, and then we can move forward to pros and cons if there's no objection.
Thank you, Rye. That is recognized. Is there a second?
My objection is withdrawn.
Okay, great. Is there any objection to having our council member finish? Any objection? Okay, seeing none. Council member, again, I'm so sorry to have had to interrupt you, but please finish your thoughts if you will.
Thank you, and no problem at all. So I was just saying that, as a matter of fact, the starting point is, first of all, just urging all the council members to vote yes on the bill. And I'll come to the amendments in a second, because to date, no council member has spoken in favor of the legislation. And I find that deeply disappointing, because this is a huge issue for our renters. And, you know, there's no question about how popular this issue is, and also how much the statistical surveys show nationwide that this actually works. Especially, it works well when there are no corporate loopholes. So I would really urge everybody who's able to come in person to City Council chambers on Friday, 9:30 a.m. That's the Renters' Rights Committee. As Rai said, we are going to be voting on this legislation, but we really need people to show up, because so far, as I said, no council member other than me, I mean, I brought this legislation forward, other than me, has spoken in support of it, which is, as I said, deeply disappointing to me. And furthermore, we need to urge that no corporate loopholes are inserted into it. There's endless amounts of evidence that shows that all the corporate loopholes, like vacancy decontrol, like, you know, like deciding that some rental units will be covered, but some won't be, all of these corporate loopholes, and I call them corporate loopholes because they are inserted by the real estate lobby. It's not done because it's good policy or whatever. It's done because they're trying to undermine it. And then rent control policy doesn't work as well as it can, because it doesn't cover all renters. And then the real estate lobby uses that as evidence to say, oh, look, rent control doesn't work. It's a little bit like the deep and chronic underfunding of the public school system, and then the whole corporate industry saying, look, public schools don't work, we need charter schools. So that, and it really undermines the power of teachers unions, educators unions as well. And it really is in some shape or form a union busting move. So that's an analogy for what happens with rent control loopholes. So it's very important that we push all the council members to vote yes on it without corporate loopholes and without delays. And so I would really urge everybody to come on Friday, July 21st at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you finishing your thoughts there. Okay, now we're going to move into for and against speeches. Can I have a raise of hands of who would like to speak? Here, how about I do this? If you would like to speak in in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, I see Rye. Great. If you would like, and Rye, I'll get to you in a second. I just want to make sure that we have someone speaking against as well. Is there someone who would like to speak against?
I can withdraw mine because Elaine put her hand up and I want to make sure she's heard over me because I put forward the resolution.
Okay, noted. Elaine, how do you intend to speak?
For.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone, before we get to you, Elaine, I just want to see if there's anyone who would like to speak against this resolution. Please raise your hand if you intend to speak against. Anyone?
I can speak against as a measure of formality for the motion to be heard, so Elaine can speak if that's so recognized.
Okay, okay, this is me not knowing if that is allowed. Rob, I see your hand. Would that be recognized for someone who brought a resolution to speak against it?
I forget the technical term, but I pretty much don't really speak against it, but I'm just doing it quid pro. Rob probably knows the technical term in Robert's rules.
Rye is correct in that he's doing something that could very well happen. I would do it a little cleaner in that I move that we extend debate to allow for one pro in the absence of cons.
Okay, there's a motion to extend debate in the absence of cons. Is there a second?
I second.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone opposed to this? Elaine, I'm taking your hand up as you wanting to speak rather than being opposed. Is that fair? You are on mute, Elaine?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm in agreement.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, seeing no objections, we will go to Elaine for 2 minutes. You are recognized.
Hey, especially for people that live in the 43rd, it is so patently clear with all of the development and density that has been created that even though the city had what it called a mandate for affordable housing, that none of that housing has actually materialized, and or greater amount of housing has been built in remote places where to force people to have to commute at great cost. There, as you know, if Seattle is by any standard a progressive city, rent control must be a given, because we witness anytime you walk around any streets, the amount of people who are without houses, the people who are also working in the city, who live in faraway places and would like to live closer to where they work. There are no reasons or justifications really for the state's ban on control of rents, other than it's evidence that there is corporate control over our laws and corporately drafted laws. And we really, in addition to establishing the need for rent control, also have to work at chipping away that law as well as many others that are written in the interest of very specific industries.
Thank you, Elaine. The 2 minutes has run out, but I want to thank you for speaking. Okay, is there any, so we did the motion to allow Elaine to speak without having a speaker. So I believe that that is the discussion for the resolution. We still do not have quorum, so I'm sorry that we cannot vote on this tonight. But I want to thank everyone for the discussion and the questions, and I want to also thank our council member for hopping on the call and sharing. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Can I just, sorry, is it okay if I ask when the resolution will come up for a vote?
That is a good question. I believe that, and Rob, if you can like make sure that I'm saying the right thing here, but I believe that we at our next meeting, if we have quorum, we can bring back the resolutions and vote on them. Is that correct, Rob?
Yeah, it'll be either the third Tuesday in August or the third Tuesday in September, depending on if we keep our August meeting, which we have in the past, we have canceled our August meeting.
Amy, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was just raising my hand to say we traditionally take August off, and so likely it would be the September meeting. Rob, do we have an idea of how close we are to quorum? Has Christina Beverland been credentialed and Sean Scott?
Christina has been credentialed. Christina has been given her voting code, but she has not signed in via the sign-in form yet. I DM'd that to her. I DM'd her her voting code about 3 minutes ago and followed up with the sign-in form. If Sean Scott has his voting code and has signed in, awesome. If not, Sean, please DM me and get you your voting code. As of 8:29 p.m., we have 26 sign-in attempts, 6 of which are invalid. So we have a total of 20 people signed in. With Sean and Christina, we would have 22. So we are
Just
very
right
close.
there. We need 25. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Sean, I
Point
just
of
got your DM
clarification.
that you want a code. I'm sending it to you right now.
Rye, go ahead.
Point of clarification, is it at all possible, because of the urgency and the timeline of this particular resolution, does the 43rd ever do like special meeting or electronic voting via outside of an actual meeting place, like either through a link via email or an OPA vote or something like that? Has that ever been done before?
Rye, that is a good question. And I don't know the answer to that. Rob, I see your hand up.
I believe I've been involved on and off in the 43rd since 2003. We have not done this body has not done a vote via phone or email. This general body has not done a vote via mail or phone or email. There are other legislative district organizations that have done something like that. So it's not without precedent to do something like that, but I don't believe this body hasn't done it. And I'd have to spend some time digging into the rules to see if we could do it.
Could I motion for a 5 to 10 minute recess, depending on the vice chair's opinion, to see if we can do a little text banking and get some more members in this room and verified to hopefully meet quorum, noticing we need 3 to 5 more people from the 43rd. I don't know if that'd be possible, but I just feel like we've gotten so close, why not try?
So I hear a motion to recess for 5 minutes. Amy, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I think that we can just carry on with the rest of the meeting and do other reports while folks are text banking and working to get voters here. Because we can go back to voting on these resolutions at any point, the second we get quorum.
That is my understanding as well.
We don't need to necessarily recess unless folks really want to do that.
Rai, how does that sound to you?
I accept a friendly amendment. We love reports. We can take our sweet time, and everyone, please, please, please text all the people you know on the 43rd. This would be so substantial for Seattle if we could make this happen.
And okay, perfect. That sounds good. And for this resolution to pass, also a reminder, it's on the agenda, but we would need 2/3 vote in order to pass it. Just a friendly reminder. Okay, so we will meander through our committee reports and we will recheck quorum throughout. So, Amy, I see your hand up. I don't know if it was up from before or if you would like to be recognized.
Sorry, I thought I took it down. I'm on my phone and I'm texting folks. It's hard to keep track of everything. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Amy, is Brad with you? I don't see Brad on the call, but
he's
Brad will-
outside. I can go try to find him.
Well, if he has a report, then let me know because we will come back to him if he wants to give a report.
Okay.
Wonderful. Jacob, you are recognized. Go ahead.
Thank you. Pretty simple on my end. I talked about get out the vote efforts for the primary already. The next big thing is we have our general election endorsements meeting in September, so get ready for that. It should be simpler than the last one. It's mainly school board and the races that we did not endorse in the first time, of which there's only a couple. And then we're going to have some meet and greet events in the summer and beyond as they come up. So we will have info on that soon once we can lock down a date and venue for the summer party. And then any other events, like I know Ron has got some things scheduled soon that we can talk about soon. A couple other events that we'll pass along. So keep an eye out for those things. And then I think that's it that I need to share today.
Thank you, Jacob. Really appreciate that. So I don't believe that we have Cody on the call, but Cody left some notes about PCO, and this will take a second because there's a bunch of links, and so I'm going to post them in the chat. But basically, we need PCOs, more PCOs. So we have the 3 that we're waiting to approve from today, and then there's also additional openings. So you can find your district here. And you can check the list of vacancies there. And we have an application form to fill out if you're interested in being a PCO and your area is vacant. So let me put that there. And so when you're filling out this application, we also ask that you email Paul, and his email is here. We would love to fill our precinct positions. And so if you are at all interested in being a PCO, please check out if your area has vacancies and fill out our form because we would love to have you. Cody also wanted me to share this with you. That you can request a GoTV list for the primary at that link. So go ahead and check that out whenever you have time. Okay. That is up. That is it for PCOs. Nosheen, I want to turn it over to you for fundraising.
Thanks, Emily. Just like Emily already mentioned, we're looking to thank you first of all, thank you to everyone that came out to the Pride Bunch. We had a lovely time meeting all of you, and we think, it was a really great way to get the community together. And in that vein, we're hoping to continue to have more community events like that. we're just confirming the date for our, summer/early fall barbecue. And so hopefully we'll have the information to you in the next week or two. Please keep an eye out on your emails, and we'd love to see as many of you as possible at the barbecue. And as Emily just put in the chat, we definitely need volunteers. I would love your support to help put on some of these events, especially for fundraising. We're able to do some of the get out the vote work that we're able to do because of the fundraising we're able to conduct. So the more the merrier in terms of help and ensuring that we're able to do all the activities that we'd like to do this fall. And if you have any ideas for, events that you would like to see, or just, other ways to gather community, in your own experience, if you've done some fundraising and have ideas to bring the community together, would love to hear from you. I'll put my email in the chat, but just again, a big thank you to everyone, and look forward to seeing you all at the barbecue.
Thanks, Nosheen. Thanks so much. Next, we will move to technology. Rob, do you have an update for the group?
Two quick things. One is if you want to help with our technology, or if you want to be technology adjacent, helping with membership and some of the other areas, we are definitely in need of more fingers on keyboard, as you might say. And then also I wanted to, while I'm mentioning technology, want to encourage folks to take a look at voterguide.info. It's a website that compiles endorsements from all the various Democratic legislative districts and county groups. So while you might reach out to friends and say, hey, if you're in Seattle City Council number 4, vote for Ron Davis. And then if you've got a friend who lives in Renton and they say, hey, what should I do on these Renton City Council races? This is one place you can point them to for guidance on who the Democrats have endorsed, in who their local Democrats have endorsed in their nonpartisan races. I'll put that in the chat. And again, welcome more, more hands, both knocking doors and hands on keyboard. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Really appreciate it. Next we will have King County reps. I don't believe that Andrew is on the call. Sophia, do you have any updates from King County?
Yes, I do. So at our last King County Dems meeting, we voted on a bunch of new endorsements there. I am going to post the link to look at all of the endorsements in King County. As far as all of the races that we as the 43rd has endorsed, the King County Democrats have endorsed as we have, except for Seattle City Council position 6, where they have endorsed Dan Strauss, while we have voted no endorsement.
Thanks, Sophia. I really appreciate that update, and you can see the endorsement list from the King County Dems in the chat. Perfect. Okay. And then next we have updates from our state reps, Amy and Sam. Amy, do you have an update?
Not currently. The board is discussing several matters right now that we'll have a better update in September. Sam, I know, was talking about something with the finance committee and applying for support. I don't know if he would like to speak on that.
I actually don't see Sam on the call.
I saw him earlier.
I did too. Maybe I'm just not seeing Sam. If you're here, you're welcome to come off mute. Rye, I appreciate your comment in the chat. And that is it for our committee reports. Rob, can you verify where we are at with quorum at this point?
21.
21. We are so close, friends. Okay. I think we will.
Alex Hudson just texted me saying she can be on in 10 minutes with Derek. That would give us 2 more. Just throwing it out there. Sorry to interrupt, Vice Chair, but
That is okay. I appreciate that update. Linda or John, I see your hand raised.
I just have a question. If we don't make quorum tonight before the official time for the meeting to end comes, what happens to both resolutions? I understand that the one on rent control is very timely, but what about the Ukraine resolution? What happens to them?
So my understanding is that we can bring them back onto the agenda for a future meeting, and we can vote on them once we have quorum.
Do we have to do something to make sure they come back?
That is a good question. Rob, go ahead.
Any member can bring any resolution so long as they bring it, I believe, either 10 days or 14 days prior. So if we don't make quorum, both of these resolutions could be brought up prior to our next meeting, or by resubmitting them prior to our next meeting. And I imagine that the makers who are both present and on video could even indicate as such so that the e-board would be aware of it, aware of the intent to bring these back if we don't make quorum.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
point of information.
Yes.
Would it be possible? I know we usually take a break in August, you're saying. I guess never mind. I take back my question because it would be August 1st for the city council vote. Never mind. Rescinded.
Okay. Okay. Let's go to good of the order. So we have
Actually, before good of the order, we were speaking of putting together a emergency resolution also that was to support the Writers Guild and the Screen Actors Guild. Would we want to talk about that if that is in order?
I believe that we can talk about it. I don't know that we could vote on it.
No, we wouldn't be able to vote on it, but it would be it would be to bring it up and discuss it.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. Rob, I see your hand up.
I just pasted a draft of a one-line resolution into the chat to support our brothers, sisters, and siblings in the Writers Guild of America and the Screen Actors Guild.
Amy, I see your hand up.
Rob basically already covered it. I would just say that if it's coming from the floor, we just need a 2/3 vote. So it is possible to pass this tonight.
2/3 of.
Once we have quorum.
Yeah.
Once we have quorum, yes.
Right. Okay. But do we, I'm so sorry. Do we need to vote to consider this? Rob?
Madam Acting Chair.
Yes.
I move that we consider, if we get quorum, or I'm sorry, I move for us to amend if we get quorum, to amend our agenda to consider this.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Anyone opposed? Amy and Rob, I see your hands up, but they were up from before. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, seeing no one opposed, should we get quorum, we would be able to vote on this. But in the meantime, I think that it would be fine. I think it would be fine to have a discussion about it in the meantime. Unless there is any objections. Right,
I can speak to the motion. I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, so I'm happy to fill time if we're trying to get quorum.
okay. I want to give Rob some time if he would like to speak, because he brought it. But I will make a note that you would also like to speak.
I yield to brother Armstrong. I'm sorry, sibling Armstrong.
All right, Rye, go ahead.
Thank you. And my apologies because you're hearing a lot of my voice tonight and I didn't expect to talk about this, but SAG-AFTRA is on strike. And the reason I moved to New York in 2016 is because there is no creative economy here where someone can actually make a living in Seattle. When moving home, I got agents here in Seattle. The first thing they told me is, oh, you're a member of the union of SAG-AFTRA. You're not going to work here in film and TV. Maybe just voiceovers and commercial. And that's because the priority is not union work here in Seattle. You look at the Seattle Film Commission, 11 seats. 1 is for union labor for IATSE. The rest of them, there's a non-union actor representing all of talent on that commission. And who restarted that commission? Council member Sarah Nelson. So it's very clear in the city of Seattle as such a tech hub that AI could very easily replace actors in a real world. The AMPTP, that acronym is terrible, actively says that in a background actor's contract, they could pay someone $100 for the day and then scan their face and their voice and use artificial intelligence to recreate a replica of them to use in perpetuity forever for $100. This is what we are fighting against. The WGA has been on strike for 3 months. The city has not responded to our word. I went to their last meeting. They wouldn't even allow for public comment, which is illegal. And I called them out for it. So whether this passes tonight or not, the next Seattle Film Commission meeting is on Monday, the 24th at 9:30. You can also join virtually. And I will be there demanding public comment. We need a response from our city. It is time we have a creative economy in Seattle. I get fired up about this because I am a SAG-AFTRA member. And solidarity, that's all I'll say. But I wish we had quorum. So, we'll fight.
Thank you, Rye. Ellen, I see a hand, but it's not like a Zoom reaction hand. So I just wanted to make sure that, okay, okay. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak to the resolution before we move into questions? Rob, I see you're off mute. Oh, now you're muted. Okay, got it. Okay. Let's go into question and answer. Does anyone have a question? Please raise your hand if you do. I'll take one more moment if anyone has a question. Okay, seeing no questions, we can go into speeches for and against. If you would like to speak against, will you raise your hand? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone speaking against, so I don't know that we can go into for and con speeches. Just waiting to see if anyone else would like to speak. Rob, can I check in one more time? Do we have quorum?
I am pulling up and refreshing just to be sure that nothing came through. I understand that James Barker is trying to join from work. I slacked him his voting code.
Yes, he just moved to a computer to join.
Oh, I see James in the call. Okay, we are gonna go to good of the order for 5 minutes. And then we are going to see about quorum. So I'd like
Oh.
to,
Madam Chair,
yes. Rob,
I want to suggest that everybody attempt to sign in again using your voting code and the sign-in website. It will not negatively impact our ability to count quorum, and I suspect there may be 1 or 2 people who may have thought they signed in with a good voting code, or may have thought they signed in but did not. So if everybody on this call just take a moment, I'll put the link in the chat again. Please sign in with your vote. Please attempt to sign in again with your voting code so we can get an accurate count of our attendees.
thank you. Sophia, do you mind putting the timer at 5 minutes? We will go into good of the order. And folks will be recognized for 1 minute. Is there any good of the order? Anything that anyone would like to share?
I would like to just share something real quick, Emily.
Justin, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to be managing the certain social media channels going forward. So I'm going to be rolling out all of the new branding on Threads and Instagram. So I will be in the next meeting sharing information on all of that. And then I can also send out in the email a link to a follow-up email, a link to all of those accounts so that everyone can follow them. So just keep an eye out for that.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. Elaine, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
I'd like to shout out to our amazing Pramila Jayapal for her courageous statement about Israel's racism. And I hope that we will have her back. She's going to take an enormous amount of abuse for making a truthful statement, and it hopefully will give others permission to speak out as well.
Thank you, Elaine. Linda, go ahead.
I can't let that go unanswered. Israel is not a racist country. Israel has a government right now that unfortunately includes a number of races, but there are Arabs in the Knesset, Palestinian Arabs who are Israeli citizens, and there are a lot of them, have full civil rights. Theirs is an imperfect, as ours is an imperfect country, but they are not racist per se. And that is an insult, and I'm very glad that Pramila Jayapal clarified and took back her unfortunate remark.
Thank you, Linda. Justin, go ahead.
I just wanted to remind people that this is for the good of the order. Thanks.
Thank you, Justin. Yes. I would like to echo that.
Tony Barker's having trouble signing in. Can someone help him?
Is that Tony Barker or James Barker? We have both of them as members.
Tony, is he signed in? Okay.
I'm gonna check. I'll check to see if Tony has signed in.
Any other announcements for good of the order? Linda, I see your hand up.
I just want to appreciate the way that you've that this meeting's been conducted. It's been really well. Emily, you did a great job.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to celebrate all of you for taking the time out of your busy lives to be here on this call. It's so important. And I just am humbled that you are here. So thank you all. I see there is discussion happening in the chat. I had a question, a point of clarification about meeting quorum. Can we call a special meeting?
Yeah, I was brainstorming in real time, but I don't think it's possible because we have to publish the meeting at least 30 days before the meeting date for such special meeting, if that was going to happen before August 1st, but I don't think it's likely.
I appreciate the brainstorming in the moment though, thinking on your toes. I like it. Justin just asked for a quorum count. Rob, how are we doing?
We have a total of 40 sign-in attempts. I'm going through now and removing duplicates. Give me a moment.
Okay. Okay, and once you do that, Rob, Derek Richards is wanting to confirm if he is signed in.
For anyone who's signed in with a voting code that starts with EDQW, that's not a valid voting code. If you want to DM me, I can look up your voting code.
I also want to say thank you to everyone for sticking around to see if we can make quorum. We have several things to vote on, so if we could do it, that'd be great. I know that it's 9 p.m., so thanks for hanging in there. Thank you, James. I saw what you put in the chat. We're happy you're here. Rai, do you want to speak to what you just put in the chat?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair. Yeah, so if we can't meet quorum tonight, I would just urge everyone to get involved on Friday if you can, either remotely calling in or at City Hall. I will be there in person. Would love to see all of y'all IRL, as the kids say. And if we can't meet quorum, we as individuals can still have a voice. So don't get down if we can't meet quorum, but we should try nonetheless.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Rye. We are so close.
We,
Go ahead, Rob.
Madam Chair, I regret to inform you that we are not there.
Oh. Okay.
What's the exact number, Rob?
Our tally counts 19 with, if we got Derek signed in, he would be 20.
Yeah, so
How did we lose people?
Sophia, do you want to double check my count?
We had 19 earlier, and I thought that we were at 23 or something, or 21.
From what it looks like to me, we do have 19. I am not sure where the earlier numbers that were in the 20s came from, but I think we have 19 at the current moment.
Rob said 19 earlier in the meeting, and then we had more people added in. So that's why I'm confused that it's still at 19.
I got to the 19 by doing a spot check. I'm now using Sophia's calculator, and the calculator is showing 19. And then, so I may have overcounted by 1 or 2 earlier. If so, I apologize. I don't see why those. I think it's probably worth us we can do a quick audit to make sure that our code is counting correctly.
Is it possible to do a roll call? Because I see we have 24 participants in the Zoom, and I think multiple people are doubles as well, with Linda, Justin has Liam. I don't know if that's possible, but
I know one person who's present is not a member, because I DM'd them because I didn't recognize their name. We could attempt a roll call vote. Is there anyone beside? I don't want to ask who's not a member. I see someone raising their hand. I'll yield to the chair, acting chair.
Linda, go ahead, please.
If we vote on a ballot, which is how we usually vote, I think, with our voting codes, then we don't need to do a roll call, but we will have an accurate count.
That's true. I can open up all 3 ballots and people could cast their votes.
Well,
Let me.
So before we can do that, I believe, and please tell me, like, stop me if I'm going off here, but I think that we would first need to approve the agenda and the minutes. Is that correct? Those are the first votes that Rob, go ahead.
Madam Acting Chair, I move, in the hypothetical assumption that we have quorum, I move that we approve the minutes and the agenda.
I wish that I was more well-versed in this. For clarification, Rob, are you hoping to have that vote by acclamation before we can find out in real time if we have quorum? Is that kind of?
Yeah, if there's no objection, I move that we.
Okay, and I see Sophia, you have your hand up.
Yes. So I am very, very, very close to absolute sure that this voting system and the sign-in system is is doing correct tallying. And I think that sorry, I forget what I was gonna say exactly. But yeah, I am very, very close to 100% positive that our voting system is tallying things properly. And from what I could tell, we are at 19 and we're going to not get that far. And also it is 9:06, so.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you, Sophia. Ellen, I see your hand up as well.
Yes, I'd like to support what Sophia just said. I feel like we're beating a dead horse. We need to, in my opinion, close the meeting and try again next time.
Okay. So there's a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes, provided that we have quorum. There is another, Sophia indicated that we do not have quorum, so I don't know that we can do that, Rob. And Alex is asking in the chat, how many do we need for quorum? We need 25. Ellen, go ahead.
Yeah,
please.
Madam Chair, I also don't think that you can move to approve an agenda on the basis of a hypothetical assumption that we have quorum.
That was my worry as well. Thank you, Ellen. I think at this point, because it is 9:08 and we do not have quorum, I think that I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Justin,
To adjourn.
thank you. Is there a second?
Regrettably second.
Yeah, it's regrettably for me too. But we do need to adjourn. So thank you all for coming this evening, and we will see what we can do on the other side of things in terms of our resolutions that have been brought up.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible, Madam Chair, for the e-board to look into a special voting session, or if that's even in our bylaws, but I thank everyone for their time and consideration nonetheless.
I will ask, I will ask that question and we will figure things out either way. So thank you all for being here this evening. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you all soon.
Do it. You don't need to do it by email.
Good night, everyone. Hi, friends. Do you, Sophia, do you want to turn off the streaming?
Oh yeah, we're doing that. Thank you for